5, 4, 3.
What's up, my friends? Welcome to Chaos Live, my fun little live stream. We're going to hang out with all you awesome people here in the live stream and answer questions. So if you have questions, make sure to drop those down in the live chat. And I'll do my best to answer the ones that I can. I do skip around a little bit in the chat, so just kind of be aware of that. If I don't get to your question, I don't get a chance to answer it, we'll either try again with your question or hit me up on Instagram. You can find my Instagram link right up there if you search for Christopher Chaos on Instagram, or that Chris Chaos is my handle officially, I guess. Then you can find me on there. You can shoot me a message, and I do my best usually to respond to everybody, and I have a pretty good, right now, success rate of being able to do so. So what's happened? We got some awesome people that joined right off the bat. Awesome notification platoon that clicked on that notification. We got FG Prodigy, Anakin Skywalker, Peter Griffin, White on Fire, Alyssa Mills, Morgan, Electronic Snake, Carlos R, Blackhawk 446, Class of 93, or Class of 93 Echo. It was Jonathan Joe, or Ethan Joe. Sorry, Ethan Joe. We got Carlos. We've got, who else do we have? That's a different Carlos. And then we have Jasmine. I think that's it for Black. We got Doug the Eliminator. So awesome people. Thank you guys for clicking that notification and being a part of that notification platoon and joining right in. So what do you guys have going on this Sunday? A little bit earlier than normal. Normally I do it later in the evenings, but I thought it might be kind of cool to kind of do it a little bit later or a little bit earlier, so that way maybe some of you on the East Coast could easily join in and be able to participate and not have to be too late at night. I don't know. Just kind of depends on how things go. So FG Prodigy, what's happening, man? Let's see. White on Fire. Not even the youngins are commenting. Well, just started. Just got going. FG Prodigy, does the Air Force have better living conditions and food? The food, for the most part, I would say is pretty close to being the same as like the Army would be. I wouldn't necessarily say that the Air Force has better food. It's probably pretty close to about the same. Living conditions, for the most part, yeah, that's probably a good chance that they probably do. Usually the barracks are a little bit nicer for the Air Force compared to the Army, so that is usually kind of a common thing that I usually see. Electronic Snake, going to Fort Seal Basic, I need tips. I do have a video on the channel about like some tips before going to basic training, so check that out. Fort Seal specific, I don't really know because I've never been to Fort Seal, so I can't really help you out too much on that part, but I would definitely check out some of the basic training videos that I have on my channel to kind of help you out with some of the tips. Blackhawk 446, my first live stream. What's up? Well, what's up, Blackhawk? Thanks for coming in and joining. Ethan, first question, Chris, what did you have for lunch? I had a very, very unhealthy lunch. I felt like snacking for lunch. The girlfriend was watching Shark Week, and we had onion dip, and it was just sitting there just being lazy as hell watching some Shark Week, snacking on some onion dip. I think I had some Gushers. Totally an unhealthy type of lunch, but just kind of felt like snacking, so I guess what I ended up going with. Is it better to get into aviation with the Army or the Navy? Asks Carlos. I don't know. I can't say for sure because I don't really know how well like the Navy has for like say aviation stuff. Army has a lot of helicopters, so helicopters pretty good, but so does the Navy. I think it more comes down to, I don't know how the Navy's enlistment process works for trying to pick your job like that. So you'd have to research a little bit of that. Where the Army, you have to go warrant officer. It can be a little bit challenging to go warrant officer to be a pilot. So you'd have to look into that kind of option. But as far as like the aircrafts itself, I mean, you get more of the attack helicopters, but they also have attack helicopters in the Navy, so you can't really necessarily say it that way either. But you just have to look at which branch maybe you prefer to probably be in. I think either one could possibly be pretty great. So that kind of just depends. It's 5:51 a.m. What is it, Western Australia? Well, Peter Griffin. All right. Did you add the Australian? I don't think your name earlier when I read it off said the Australian. Did you just recently add that? So it's early for you then, if you're in a different country. Is that a new hat? No, this is a hat that I've had for a while. I don't wear it a whole lot on live streams or anything like that. It was a special edition Chaos hat that I had made during this little first ever Chaos live tour thing that I did that wasn't very successful, but it was still fun anyways. But I had these hats made, and I had a few of them, and some people that went to the little meetup thing got some hats and everything. So yeah, but it's a good hat. I have a couple of these ones that I wear occasionally, but I haven't worn it on live stream for a while. Chris picked up my 2019 Silverado earlier this week. Drove out of the dealership with that short clip of your Friday's entrance music. Felt awesome. Awesome. I need to find that song again. The song that I use for like my Friday videos is what Doug is talking about here, and I like that. That song's pretty cool. I guess I need to kind of like modify it, maybe use it in other things too. It could be like my cool entrance music if I ever do some kind of like, I don't know, public speaking things or something, and that's the song they play before I walk out. Would be kind of cool maybe. I'm stuck between Army and Navy. It really just comes down to which branch you feel is going to give you the best training, which one you have more interest in, and a lot of other factors and stuff. I can't really say that one's better than the other because it's not really the case for everybody. Okay, so BAS will not be included then, correct? Were you responding to a different question earlier? Okay, so we got a question for Chris or anyone here in the live chat. While at basic training and AIT, does my wife receive BAH and BAS? BAH, yes, but BAS, no, because BAS is for the soldier. That's the basic allowance for subsistence, which is to pay for that married soldier to be able to have food for that soldier, not the family, for the soldier. While you're in basic training, you're getting food provided to you while you're in basic training, so there's no need for you to be receiving BAS for food because you already have the food being provided for you. You'll still receive BAH based on where your family is staying while you're in training, but not BAS. And then you'll start receiving BAS once you get out. Hey Chris, do the drill sergeants treat you differently in basic training compared to AIT? Yeah, in basic, they're way more stricter, way more trying to really test your abilities and how well you can respond under pressure. AIT, they're still going to be somewhat, pretty strict and everything. Not as crazy strict as they will be in basic training. And sometimes that kind of lightens up a little bit during later in the weeks of AIT. That just really depends on what it is you're going for and those particular individuals really too. But usually you'll find that the drill sergeants are still really strict in AIT and still yelling at you and doing everything, but not quite as extreme as they will be in basic training. Leaving for basic tomorrow. Well, good luck to you. Was it Mo? Hopefully all works out well. Do I like Star Wars? It's okay. I'm not a big fan of Star Wars, I wouldn't say. I don't really watch. I've probably seen some of the movies, but not a huge fan, but I don't hate them either, I guess. What MOS would be faster to rank up? Usually 11 Bravo. A lot of those combat arms MOSs, mainly, like usually your promotion from E1 to E4, which is really just an advancement, but let's not get into the technicalities of it. But when you're moving from an E1 to an E4, that's pretty much the same. That's pretty much a standardized kind of set way for all MOSs. It's really when you're getting into the non-commissioned officer area, you're trying to go from E4 to E5 and E5 to E6 and all that stuff, that it does vary based on your MOS, because it's going to depend on like how many individuals are already in those leadership roles, how many do they need in those leadership roles, that determines the point scale for people trying to get promoted in those MOSs. If they have a lot of individuals in that MOS that is already in these leadership positions, then the points are usually pretty high. So it's a little bit more difficult to get promoted. Where if they need a lot of people, then the points are pretty low to try to get more people into these roles to get promoted. So then the points are pretty low. And commonly, because of how huge the combat MOS side is, like 11 Bravos and everything, they're always usually pretty low on NCOs and everything, to where they always need more. And so the points are usually pretty low. Where you have some of these other MOSs that don't have as many people as you have, like with 11 Bravos or anything like that, then the points end up being pretty high because they already have a lot of people in those positions, and so they don't need as many people. So it makes it a little bit tougher. But usually the combat arms type of MOSs, because there's so many of those individuals, usually have lower point standards, which usually ends up equaling people to get higher up into rank. Let's see, Alyssa, what's happening? It's been a hard week. One of the guys that was in fiance's unit but went to their sister's unit, passing away at Fort Pickett during AT. That sucks. Sorry to hear about that. That's a bummer. When do you think the Army will issue out pinks and greens in basic? Probably not for a while. They're right now talking about how they're going to maybe start utilizing them maybe in 2020, somewhere around there. But it's probably not going to be a thing where people start issuing them until maybe later in 2020, maybe like 2025, 26, something like that they're talking about. So it might still be a while right now. But they're going to start, I think next year, starting to implement how some units, if they want to, can start wearing them and using them. But it's probably not going to be a required standard until much later. I got 24 weeks for 11 X-ray OSIT, while other dudes I met got 14. Any idea why? Maybe because you're doing part of the newer, I forget what that newer one is with the OSIT, where it's a little bit longer compared to someone else going to 14, or maybe their just paperwork is wrong. It just depends. I don't really know specifics on that, but usually if you're doing 11 X-ray, you should be going to Fort Benning. And I don't know if all of the Fort Benning OSIT locations are doing the new longer extended OSIT compared to the older style, so I couldn't tell you for sure on that. How long was your basic in AIT? It was before they extended basic training to 10 weeks. It was still 8 weeks back then. And then my AIT was 5 weeks. I think now it's 6 weeks for 88 mic. So slightly different compared to nowadays. What's the longest you've grown your beard? We're probably getting to about that right now. I'm trying to grow it a little bit longer. The front part right here is a little bit longer than the rest of it, so I'm gonna have to end up trimming this down a little bit to grow it, to catch this up to it. But I'm probably gonna go a little bit longer than I normally have before, just because I want to change things up a little bit. But I'm not gonna go crazy long. So probably about the length that I have the front right here. It's pretty close to about as far as I'm gonna probably go with the whole entire thing though. But I have to get the rest of it to catch up, because I started kind of growing this part of it out sooner than the rest of it, and then deciding that I wanted to grow it out longer then, so I have to let the rest catch up. But this is probably pretty close to is probably the longest I've ever had my beard, probably. Can I bring my 2000 video game collection to the barracks? Not while you're in basic training AIT or anything like that, but once you get out of that and you're in your regular training unit, you can have all that fun stuff. You can have your laptop, you can have your TV, PlayStation, whatever game console you've got, your PC, all that stuff. But while you're in that basic training, initial training, stuff like that, you can't do any of that kind of thing. I can't even pronounce it. Desertion still punishable by death in the Army? It was last used in 1944. Private Eddie, however you pronounce his last name. No, I don't believe it's punishable by death. I think they say that, I think it still has in the regulation that like rape and certain other things can be punishable by death, but I don't think there's ever been a case where anybody's actually been punished by death in those cases. But for the most part, desertion, you're probably going to get a dishonorable discharge, possibly end up spending some time in Fort Leavenworth in prison, maybe, I don't know. But you're probably most likely going to at least get a dishonorable discharge, which is essentially like getting a felony. When do you think the Army will issue? I already read that one. I went backwards a little bit. Do they take the stuff like shirts, jackets, shorts, etc. out of your pay when you arrive in basic? No, this is just basically basic issued stuff. You're not going to get charged for that stuff. It's just your basic issue. So you get your basic issue, and then from there on, your Army career, every time you reach around the 1 year mark of your 1 year anniversary, you receive what is called a clothing allowance. So you get paid a little bit extra to try to replace some of your uniforms. And you'll have to use that money to replace your uniforms for the ones that have gotten old, maybe you've grown out of, maybe they've just gotten faded, whatever the case is, and you'll do it that way. But your initial ones are the ones that you just get issued to you. You don't pay for them, and then from there on, you do have to pay for your uniforms. There are some times where you'll get issued some more extra uniforms through your unit, and that's cool. It's a great hookup because it saves you a little bit of money from having to buy more. But otherwise, you have to use that clothing allowance if you don't get that hookup from your unit to issue you some more uniforms. Ever heard of Chris Kyle? Of course. See, what's up, Chris? Been a minute since I caught your live streams. Well, thanks, Will. Welcome joining the Chaos Live stream. Evie, what's happening? Chris, so happy you're streaming earlier, so I can participate for the Who Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I figured you're one of the people in as well. Did a little earlier one for all you on the East Coast. Thinking of creating my own small town in New York State, maybe creating my own country one day. Any thoughts? I think that'd be very difficult to do, but good luck to you on that. I'd imagine that wouldn't be very easy. Chaos, I watched your last day in the Army video where you spun out of uniform. Yeah, it was a very tricky thing at that time. I was pretty good at doing video editing stuff, and I had an idea how it would work, and I was able to easily do it. I definitely say my video skills are much better now. But yeah, at the time, I was pretty proud of that little cool effect, even though it's a really simple effect to do now that I know a little bit more. But at the time, I was pretty proud of it. Like the early live stream, it's been raining all day here in South Florida. Yeah, thanks for joining on this earlier than normal live stream. Chris Chaos 2020, yeah, I'd be a horrible, horrible politician if you wanted me anywhere in that situation. Chris, are you looking for that ZZ Top look? No, we won't get that crazy with the beard. Like I said, this is probably pretty close to how long it'll go, maybe a little bit longer. but not by much. And then I got to get the rest of it to catch up because on the sides here, it's not quite as long as this front part is. So I have to eventually start trimming this down so that the sides can catch up and it'll be all one uniform length to kind of work on. So, can you request to be sent to a unit that deploys or have an upcoming deployment after OSIT, going 19 Delta with Airborne, to be stationed in Bragg with the 82nd, or hoping to be stationed in Bragg with 82nd? Kind of, you could. There's no guarantee you could. There's people that have done that where they arrive at unit and they want to try and, switch over to another unit that they know is getting ready to deploy. The hard part with that is that unit has probably been, prepping for this deployment for however long, months, weeks, whatever, probably months most likely. And they've been doing different training events to try to prep for this deployment. If you haven't been there for that training to prep for the deployment, they're not as willing to want to take you compared to someone else, that maybe has done some training for it. So that kind of plays a factor. It also plays a factor with if you're going to a unit that is short on your MOS, and the reason why you're going to that unit is because they need that MOS. They're not just going to let you go to some other units so you can go deploy, and now they're back to being short on those individuals. So that plays a factor. There's a lot of different factors in there. It is possible to request to go to another unit that is deploying, but there's a lot of factors that could potentially lead to you not getting to go with that unit. But it doesn't hurt to try if that's something you really wanted to go after. We got a super chat. What is it? London Dorf with the $5 super chat. Getting from, what is it? Crack Cow greetings. Well, another one? Man, double super chats in there. Well, thank you very much for the super chat. Is it so it's greetings from, I don't even know what that is. Crack Cow. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. But thank you for the super chat. You're awesome. You rule. Can you arrive at AIT? Then they have no class space for you, so you have to wait. It's potentially a thing that could happen. It's probably pretty rare. I don't know how rare it is, but usually they have things fairly organized-ish. But if that did happen, which it could happen, then you go on a holdover status and you get kind of stuck waiting there for a little while, and then eventually having to, go and start basic training with the next class that has available slots. But it could happen. It just means you get stuck in reception doing some crappy details, some crappy work until the time kind of comes. What's up, Rachel? How's it going? And we have another super chat from Carlos. Thank you, Carlos, for the super chat. You rock. You're awesome. How do you get all your armed forces, convicted that we're all on the same team during the barbecue? It's all out chaos, and my best friend accidentally broke my nose because he thought I was someone else. That sounds like a really crappy situation. So I guess you just have to go to the leadership, to the chain of command, call the MPs. I don't know. Just like a normal police type of situation. Which will be better option as E2 with family living in post or I'm going to say on post or off post, in your own opinion and experience? Most people that I've known prefer living off post because there's not quite as many restrictions. Usually on post has a lot of restrictions, and technically you're subject to being able to be, inspected by your unit if they want to come inspect your housing and your living conditions in the on post housing, where if you live off base, they can't do that. So some people prefer that, but then some people like the, not paying rent and utilities and everything with on post housing. Sometimes it depends on your rank too. If you're pretty low ranking, like an E2 like that, you're probably getting just the bare minimum of housing. They're kind of like these little duplex. It also depends if you have a lot of kids. If you have a lot of kids, it kind of factors a little bit more. But if it's just you and your spouse, or you and maybe like one child or two children, then you're usually getting like the smaller duplex style kind of on-post housing. So it's not as great, where you might be able to get a better place for the amount of BAH you'd receive off base. So there's a lot of different factors. Some of those have to factor in there. When you get higher up in ranking, they're pretty nice houses. So sometimes it's nicer to get those compared to what you could get for your amount of BAH off base. So most people that I talk to, they like to just kind of get away though from being on base. So most people prefer to live off base, from a lot of people that I've known. But it's really personal preference, as if you don't mind living on base with all the other military individuals. And then the on-post housing conditions, if they're pretty good for that area, then maybe it's better just to go on-post housing. But some cases, it's better just to use a BAH to get a nicer place off base. Is the Ranger scroll a tab or a unit patch And if so, can you have a scroll and 3 tabs? So there is a scroll and there is also a tab. The scroll is if you're a part of the 75th Ranger Regiment, then you have a scroll. If you have the tab, that simply means you went through Ranger School and have been Ranger qualified. Now you can't have both, have the Ranger Scroll being in the 75th and also attended Ranger School, because especially non-commissioned officers and officers, that's a requirement. So you have to have that. And then you could additionally have 2 other tabs that you could possibly have. But then there's other weird kind of ways, like if you're an airborne unit, then you can still have your airborne unit tab and then 3 additional ones, but you can't have, because that's really just a part of your unit tab. It's a weird kind of complicated thing, but something along those lines. If going in as an E2, can you still get ranked up at basic? It'd be kind of tough, because I don't think the time and grade and time and requirements would really happen while you're in basic training, because they're a little higher. It all really just depends on your time and grade and time and service. You can get a waiver for one or the other, which your leadership might not be really willing to give you or the basic training drill sergeants might not really want to go through the effort of giving you a waiver unless you do something extremely awesome, like maybe max your PT test or qualified expert or something along those lines where you really stand out. Then they might do that, but otherwise there can be some trickiness to be able to do so. We got Lundendorf again with a $50 bomb dropping here for the live stream for the chat. Thank you so much. Sorry I can't stay for long. I wake up tomorrow at 5:15 for, oh man, I cannot pronounce that, whatever that is, Austin's with, I butchered the hell out of that probably. So goodbye. Well, thank you, Lundendorf, for hanging out. Thank you for coming to Chaos Live and hanging out and dropping the live stream. Another one too. P.S. I have a private tour there. Well, awesome. Well, good luck to you. Hopefully everything goes well tomorrow for you. I appreciate the donations to the channel. I appreciate you hanging in and saying hi and all the funness. So thank you so much, man. You rock. Thanks for the donations there. Are the Army defects 24 hours now? No. The only time you ever have like kind of some 24-hour defects is occasionally on deployments. Sometimes they'll have some defects at some locations. It'll be kind of like a 24-hour system. It may not be your normal breakfast, lunch, and dinner during all 24 of those hours. It might be like something else where they have like some kind of snacks or some kind of like sandwich bar or something, something to get some food for those individuals that have been gone on mission all day and have missed certain chows. Then sometimes they have that, but for the most part, stateside, they usually don't. I don't think I've known anywhere that has like a 24-hour chow hall. Otherwise, no, they don't believe they have that available. So no, not that I know of, anyways. Do they issue a pistol when you're infantry? Most likely no, but. And it's not really like a pistol you get to keep or anything. It goes in the arms room, and if you have to go do training, then you issue it out. Officers probably will, but if you're just an enlisted soldier, you're getting an M4 for the rifles. The only time tankers will get pistols because of the enclosed space inside of there, but it just depends on certain MOSs. But infantry, probably not. You're going to get an M4. Are you going to do MOS Monday tomorrow? Maybe. I'm going to try to maybe shoot the episode tonight and then do an MOS Monday for tomorrow. If not, then maybe next Monday. I've been a little bit behind on that for MOS Monday. I've been working on other things, but maybe next, maybe this Monday or maybe next Monday. I don't know yet. Thank you for answering my question. Well, no problem, Carlos. Was it Krakow is in Poland? Oh, well, interesting. That's thanks, Doug the Eliminator, as well as Alyssa for the hookup on the location of where that was at, because I had no idea where was it Lundendorf was talking about where greetings from Krakow. I have no idea where that was at. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. Maybe even pronouncing that wrong as well. What do I need to take to basic training? They should have some kind of packing list usually. If not, sometimes you can look it up online as far as the AI or the basic training location you're going to. Sometimes they have a website as far as what the packing list is going to be. Your recruiter hopefully should tell you. Maybe MEPS has a packing list that they give you when you kind of do your contract and everything for where you're going to go, and they'll kind of tell you. It's usually like basic hygiene stuff and a few other small items that you must bring. Usually they should have some kind of packing list though. Would it be hard to get into air traffic control? I have no idea. Maybe. I don't know what the requirements are for that MOS. Chris, is it true U.S. military in Syria or Washington, D.C. in salary last month? And I have no idea this month. I'm not sure what you're talking about. There are very, very, very few individuals in Syria. There's people in Washington, D.C. but I don't know what your question is. A little bit kind of jumbled there. Chris, is it your U.S. military in Syria or Washington, D.C. in salary last month and this month? I mean, it's kind of a broken up question. I'm sorry, I can't really make out what it is you're trying to say, but there are very, very few soldiers in Syria if that's what you're trying to find out about. A lot of history comes out of, I can't even pronounce that name of that country. Doug, you're probably a very, very big history buff. I'm not big on history, so I don't know a whole lot about history stuff. How can I bring my girlfriend with me on off-base housing? You're not going to be able to have on-base housing if you're single. You're gonna have barracks, and they can come for visits, but they're not supposed to do sleepovers usually. Usually most units have restrictions against that. And then if you want to, like, say you're getting sent to some location, they're not going to pay for that individual, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever, to go to that location. You're gonna have to do that yourself, or they're gonna have to pay for that to go there. But you're not going to get paid for on-post or off-post housing if you're not married. So we got a super chat. We got two super chats in here. We got one from Josh. Both places he mentioned were concentrating camps used by the Germans in World War II. Well, that's interesting. That'd be kind of an interesting history kind of tour of checking out things. So that's pretty cool. You'll get to see, I guess, that stuff. And thank you, Josh, for the tip as well as the little history lesson there. That's awesome. And then we got Rodrigo. As military police, will I see combat? There are some, kind of things, not in the same aspect as like infantry, but there are some, like, maybe clearing out some places, kind of, doing like some raids a little bit with MPs. Some of what they do is on the installation in a combat zone as far as policing that area, but they will do off-base missions as well. How in-depth it goes, I'm not too sure, but it's not as extensive as like an 11 Bravo would be. But there are some. So you would see some combat, most likely, as an MP if you're in a combat deployment. Not as much as you might likely see if you were a infantryman, though, however. So thank you, Rodrigo, and thank you, Josh, for both the super chats and your questions. Why are defects always packed? I don't say they're always packed. It just depends. But I mean, a lot of single soldiers especially want to take advantage of that. It's free food, essentially. I mean, there's up to interpretation for some people as far as if it's free or not free, but essentially you're getting this food, and so single soldiers a lot of times want to take advantage of that. And then even married soldiers, you can pay for it, and it's really cheap. It's like $3 something, I think it is, to go eat in the chow hall. So a lot of married soldiers sometimes want to take advantage of that too. So that can sometimes make them pretty packed, but I don't say they're always packed. There's sometimes I've seen before where they're not. You should do a video on the Army song. Maybe eventually. I wrote it down, but I don't really like singing. I don't really want to sing it. So if I did, I'd have to find some way around it where I did a video on it and somebody else sang it, maybe. I don't know. Do you shoot guns at all? Rarely. Occasionally. Occasionally I'll go with some friends and do some stuff, but not very often. What's the longest you can get stationed in another country? I mean, you could keep re-enlisting for it. That's going to really depend sometimes on certain limitations, but you could probably re-enlist for staying in a country for multiple years. I knew a guy when I was stationed in Korea that I think he was there for like 4 or 5 years or something like that because he kept re-enlisting to stay there. But otherwise, a normal tour is usually around 3 years, 2 years, 1 year sometimes. Like, I know Korea is a little bit shorter, but like Europe, a lot of times has like 3-year tours that they do. And then you can keep re-enlisting to stay longer if you want. But if you're not specifically re-enlisting to stay in that country, then probably 3 years, probably around the max, somewhere around there. Can you get your family's civilian jobs on base easily, or are there programs to help with that? I believe they usually have like for one, they have the FRG, which is usually the family readiness group, and sometimes through that, spouses and other people work together to try to help like new spouses that are first coming to that duty station to find jobs locally. So that kind of helps. Sometimes the installation itself will have different programs that they offer to try to help spouses find jobs. And then as far as like, sometimes there's preference. Some installations might have like a preference as far as when you're like, if a spouse who is a spouse to a soldier is interviewing for a job on base compared to someone who is just a civilian off base, the preference might go to that spouse because, of that situation. So there are some different things that you can look into. You have to probably talk to some people, like especially FRG would be a great place to kind of start off with and find out through the FRG at that first duty station what programs are available to help a spouse kind of get a job. How hard is it to rank up at basic? Pretty hard, because for one, you're not there for a really long time to really qualify for promotions. So that kind of makes it kind of difficult. Usually the only people you can usually get promoted while in basic is maybe someone who's, you know, excelled and maybe stood out. Then maybe the drill sergeants might, not guaranteed, but might be willing to put in a waiver for that individual to bump up to an E2, maybe. But that kind of just depends. So it can vary. It's not a very common thing where people get promoted in basic, but there are cases where you can. If I went to MEPS and came in as an E2, but I have the credits for E3, now can I get it changed before basic? I don't know. You'd have to probably talk to a recruiter about that, if that's something you could possibly do. I'm not really too sure. MEPS gave me a packing list. Well, there you go. Yeah, so MEPS should give you like a packing list. I remember when I went through MEPS, it was a long time ago, but they gave me a packing list as far as what I had to bring to basic training, and then a lot of basic training websites usually have a packing list as well. Do paratroopers have military dogs with them? Example, sniffer dogs, etc. I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen that. I mean, I could see it being a possibility, and I think I've seen pictures of that happening for certain MOSs, like your was your 31 kilo or whatever. But I don't know how common that is. That might not be a very common thing, probably. MP do see some combat, and likely, yeah, like I already explained. You can't. It just depends on the situations as well. It's not as common as like infantry would be. Next time I come to Colorado, we need to jam on the guitars. I haven't played guitar in a while. I'm probably really rusty, really bad at it. I've been playing guitar since I was 16. Was when I started learning how to play guitar, around 15, 16. But it hasn't been very consistent throughout those years. So I am definitely not as good as I probably should be for a guy who has been playing guitar since he was 16. So I'm more along the lines of maybe, I think personally, the skill level of someone who's been maybe only playing guitar for maybe like 5-10 years or something like that, because of how inconsistent I've been with playing guitar. First feeling when you found out you would be getting deployed. It was definitely, nervous. I was definitely a little bit nervous about doing so. You get in your head, you see all these war movies, and everything of what's going on and the news and everything, and you feel a little bit worried about it. But, I guess that, and that nervousness carried over for a little bit while in deployment, but quickly went away once you kind of started getting a little bit more used to it and kind of adapted to the area. But, yeah, mostly nervous, I guess, about not knowing what to expect and what it was going to be like. Can you do a video on air traffic control for the Army? Maybe eventually. I don't know if it'll be anytime too soon. Chris, are you still doing your gaming streams? Miss those, pew pew. I was going to do one eventually. I wanted to do Keemstar, if you're not familiar with Drama Alert. Keemstar has like a Storm Area 51 video game that I guess he made or something, or him and his friends made or something like that, that's available on Steam, and I thought about maybe getting that and doing a live stream with that. I didn't end up getting around to it, but yeah, eventually I'll probably do some more gaming live streams. I know they don't do as well as like a lot of other videos, but they're fun to do, and there are people who do enjoy them, so it'll probably still be kind of a rare thing that I do maybe, but I need to get back into it. But also the big thing is I'm not very good at video games, so sometimes I don't know how entertaining it is, because usually the entertaining people that are streaming video games are really good at it, so it's fun watching them kick some butt because they're good at video games. I'm really not really that great at, like, especially multiplayer video games. I'm maybe okay at single player games, so that's a little bit better, but multiplayer games I'm horrible at. I'm bad. Here's some stomping going on upstairs. Sounds like my daughter's probably getting mad about something. Chris, is Germany still a popular duty station? It was when I was in, but back then it was still divided east and west. Yeah, it's still a very popular one. It's on my list of top 5 duty stations, not because I felt that it was in the top one, but because of a lot of individuals that I know and talk to, and of duty stations that people have been in. Then it's a really popular area because of how easy it is to travel to other locations and see a lot of stuff. So yeah, Germany's still a pretty popular duty station to go to. 31 Echo Army Jailer? I don't know. Is that still an MOS? I have to research it to see if that's even still an MOS. Do you stay at your first duty station for the length of your first contract? I know the Army will move you if they need you somewhere else. Yeah, it really just depends. There's no set thing saying that you'll be at this duty station for your entire Army contract, or if after 2 or 3 years you're going to get moved to somewhere else. There's no real set thing. That really can depend. Definitely not if you're like going overseas. If your first duty station ends up being like Germany or Korea, then yeah, you're going to get moved again before your probably contract is up, most likely. But then if you're going your first duty station somewhere in the United States, then you may be there for your entire contract, but you could end up getting moved around and going somewhere to Europe or Germany or Korea or whatever. Can this stream stretch for 30 minutes longer? I'm learning so much. Well, we still got about 30 minutes left. It's only been a half hour, and I do these for an hour. So I mean, you still have really an hour total. So about 30 more minutes still left to go. So yeah, still got a little while. I'll be coming as an E4. Will I get, voluntold to be a PG platoon sergeant, basically, in basic? Most likely, yeah. That's a lot of the people that usually end up being stuck in those platoon sergeant positions are people who are, E4s, E3s, whatever, coming in, maybe prior service individuals. Usually get stuck with being the platoon sergeant roles. So yeah, it's probably a fairly good chance, unless there's a lot of other E4s specialists in your basic training that maybe have some prior enlisted backgrounds or something like that. So, would my spouse get time off after basic to help me move? I don't know if they would get time off. It's based on your spouse's employer. I don't really know, but usually, most commonly, you'll get time off to try to move all your stuff. But as far as if your spouse would get time off, I couldn't tell you. Leave the 13th Fort Benning. Any last minute tips? Hopefully you've already prepared at this point. I mean, try to maybe memorize certain things like the warrior ethos, maybe the soldier's creed, maybe your general orders to make things easier. Hopefully you know your rank and you're in great shape. Otherwise, it's probably a little late. Do still drill sergeants cuss at soldiers during basic training? Yeah, I've seen several videos and other examples and stuff of people going through basic training where they still curse at you. It's not that crazy where they aren't. I mean, some of them maybe more on personal preference don't curse at you just because it's a personal preference where they're not going to, want to curse at you. But there's no, and it can depend on the leadership. But so basically, yes, I've seen examples of some drill sergeants still cursing during basic training. But there's also some examples where leadership wants them to be more professional and won't curse, or maybe their morals, they don't like to curse. So that can really vary. So, but I don't think there's really like across the board thing saying that no, they're not going to curse at you or anything like that. So, how much free time do you have once you had your job training and stationed at a base? That depends on your M1. Sometimes if you're a cook, you kind of suck in a little bit. As MPs, don't have a whole lot of downtime. But a lot of other MOSs, weekends off, holidays off, all that kind of stuff. I have a video on my channel of the basic day-to-day life and all that kind of stuff, but that just kind of really depends and stuff like that. We got Erica Burney in the live chat. What's happening, Erica Burney? How's it going? Is it hard to get airborne in your contract? Hard? I don't know if it's hard to get. I mean, it depends on a lot of factors. If there's open slots for you, sometimes they want to give priority to like people going 11 Charlie, to either become 11 Bravo, or not 11 Charlie, but 11 X-Ray for people coming 11 Bravo or 11 Charlie. Sometimes priority goes to them, and then it just depends on slots based on when you're going to be graduating basic training or AIT or whatever. I don't know if it's necessarily hard though. There's just a lot of factors that can play into it. When I was in Germany, the wall was still up. That's pretty crazy, Doug. That's pretty cool, though. Pretty cool little history from it. I remember I've been to Germany as a tourist, and seeing parts of Germany that had the wall kind of still remaining. It was already over and been torn down by them, but it was still kind of cool to see certain remote areas where the wall still existed. I don't know if that's still the case now, but that's still pretty cool. In the Army, are you allowed to tailor your OCPs like in the Marines to have a more tighter, sleek fit? No, because I think they're supposed to have a loose fit for the most part for safety reasons, as far as like, if they were to catch on fire, I mean, they kind of have like this somewhat flame resistance to them. But if they're really close to your skin, then that can, cause more burns. But no, I don't. I mean, some people do some little alterations here and there. As long as it doesn't stand out probably too much, then you probably could get away with it. But I don't believe they recommend doing anything special like that. Some of the alterations I see a lot of people do is people will go and have their name tape sewn on, since you may not change that out unless females, getting their name changed because they got married or whatever, or maybe got divorced and go back to their maiden name, whatever. But a lot of people I'll see nowadays will start to have their name tape in the U.S. Army name tape sewn on So that way it's just easier. And then certain other things like that, they kind of make things a little bit better. But other than that, I don't know how much alterations you can kind of get away with. Do you think the new PT test is going to be whack? I don't know. I kind of like it. It definitely seems like it's easier to pass, and it is definitely easier to or harder to max. Not easier to max, harder to max. I believe from everything I've seen and everybody I've talked to, all the soldiers like I do training with and everything like that, nobody has been able to max this thing. It's easier to pass it, but way, way harder to max it. They've had like elite athletes try to take this thing, and they couldn't still max it. So I think it's good. I think it tests a soldier's abilities to be prepared for a combat zone better than the push-ups, sit-ups, and 2-mile run alone do. But it does probably lower the standards a little bit. But at the same time, you're not going to see all these people like you would see now, where people left and right are maxing the PT test because they can easily do that many push-ups, sit-ups, and a 2-mile run, where certain events on this new PT test are like extremely hard to max. Like I think I've been hearing from several soldiers that to max like the ball throw, you have to throw this medicine ball a certain amount of distance to pass it, but to max it, it's like super far. You have to throw this dang medicine ball to be able to max it. So that's like extremely hard to do. Chris, do you personally know anyone who has been KIA at a deployment? Yes, I have. Not while I was on deployment, but there's people that I've known that have gone on to do maybe another deployment, like after the deployment I was on them with, and during that deployment something happened to them. But yes, I have known situations like that. What bank do you recommend for basic and on? It's personal preference. I mean, a lot of people love Armed Forces Bank because of them being military friendly, but really just depends on what bank you trust the best. You might have some limitations based on if there isn't any banks at where you're going to be stationed at, like if this is a small town kind of branch. But I mean, you still get that with kind of with USAA because there is no physical branches to be able to go into the bank and do stuff. But if you don't need that, then it's no big deal. So really, I just recommend whatever bank you trust the best, whatever one you like doing business with. But a lot of people like using Armed Force or not using USAA. How long can you stay as an E1? I don't remember what the limitations are. There's like, 6 months or something like that? Usually, I think something like, I forget what the standards are. If you can easily Google that. You can look it up online. You find out what the time and rank, time and grade standards are for all the different enlisted ranks, and you can be able to find that out. If you kept failing at training, you're asking what would happen? Is that what you're saying? How long can you stay? Are you saying as an E1 if you kept failing at training, so you're there forever? Well, it's still the basic standards, but if you kept failing after a while, they're going to probably kick you out. It just depends on how much effort you're giving to it, and if you're making any kind of improvements in the leadership as well, as far as if they want to go through with chaptering you out and all that kind of craziness. So that can really vary as far, but there's still different standards as far as how long you're at one rank before you move to the next one. Can you tailor your dress uniform though? Yes, that one usually you will. When you go and you get that stuff issued at basic training, they're going to take your measurements first, and then they kind of start the alterations for your dress uniform, for the Army service uniform. And then you won't get those right away. You'll get those a little bit later after they've done the alterations to that uniform to fit better. And then later on, if you have to, maybe you've gained weight or lost weight, whatever the case is, you can easily take those to an alterations shop on base or off base and have them altered more if you need to. And yes, so those ones you definitely are going to have them altered, at least initially when you first get them. And then if you additionally have to do it more because you've either gained or lost weight, then that's a thing that happens as well. Can you join USAA before joining the Army? What are you talking about? The bank? Can you join the bank before joining the Army? What do you USAA is like it's a bank. If you're married but your spouse and children are staying home and not moving with you right away, do they still get the benefits, and would I still be able to live off base? Yes. So I've gotten this question a few times from different individuals that are, either considering that their spouse and their family is in another country, or just wanting to stay because of maybe a job that the spouse has. The biggest thing you have to realize is that a while back they used to have this thing called geographic bachelor, where if your family wasn't coming with you, then they could stay where they're at, and then you could still receive BAH, but you live in the barracks, and they would allow that. And then they got away with that. I forget when they got rid of the geographic bachelor status. So you can't do that anymore. So now you're going to have to either get a place on post, which that means they're going to take your BAH from you, so you're not going to receive BAH because you're living for free on base, or you're going to have to live off base, and you're going to get BAH, but you're still going to have to pay for your rent, and you're also going to have to pay for whatever rent where your spouse is staying at. So, I mean, that kind of makes things a lot more expensive because now you're having to cover the rent for 2 locations, and you don't get paid anything extra for that. So you have to kind of factor that in there. But your normal benefits for being a spouse, they're still going to get it. Now, if they don't come with you, it might be a little difficult for them to be able to get a military ID because you have a spouse ID that the spouses can get. And so it might be tough for them to get one if they're not going to be there with you because they'd have to go to the local DEERS, which is the ID card place on Pace, to be able to get that ID card. So that might be a little tough as well. So, but that's the main thing to factor in. So you don't get extra BAH. You can't live in the barracks. You have to pay for both those locations. Hey Chris, I qualify for 35 Lima counterintelligence agent, and I wanted to know if you had any input on this job. Is it hard? Do they deploy often? Possible duty stations? I don't know anything about counterintelligence, so I could not tell you. I don't remember if I've done an MOS Monday on that MOS or not, but I don't know. I couldn't really tell you for sure. If you leave for basic August, when it's best time to purchase a vehicle? I don't know. Is that the best time to purchase a vehicle is August? I don't know. Could you join the Army after you left a foreign country or foreign military? You're going to have to go through an extensive background check, so it just kind of depends on what that foreign military was. Are you a U.S. citizen, or do you at least have a green card based on the MOS you're trying to go to? Does it require security clearance? And if that is the case where it requires a security clearance, you have to be a U.S. citizen for that usually. So there's a lot of things I couldn't tell you for a flat answer. If you are married, do you do the whole BAH process during reception week, and is it guaranteed on your first paycheck? Yeah, so it will be done when you're initially going through in processing. They're going to start collecting all that information from you as far as your bank account, as far as where you want your pay to go. If you're married, then they usually want some kind of documentation. They should tell you at MEPS like to bring like a copy of your marriage certificate so you can prove you're married, so you can start receiving BAH, and then where you want BAH for. As far as it being guaranteed on your first paycheck, it should, but if it's not, then you can get back paid for it. So this kind of depends on the processing of where they're going through it, and if they're able to process it in time to make it onto your first paycheck. That, like I said, a lot of things aren't guaranteed in the Army. They do their best sometimes to try to get it on time, but if it doesn't, then you have to get it corrected, because sometimes you might not even get your first paycheck. Sometimes that gets screwed up and you have to wait the next month to get your paycheck. You have to let drill sergeants know or let somebody know that, hey, I didn't get paid. We need to fix this. And so they have to go through the process of inquiring what happened and all that stuff. But as far as being guaranteed, there's nothing really guaranteed. Does the Army have less contract options towards the end of the year? I don't know. I don't know if it varies based on the end of the year compared to the beginning of the year. I would imagine the peak times is like around the summertime, because you have a lot of people that are graduating from high school that are trying to join the Army and everything. So maybe during that time frame it might be a little bit more limited compared to like during the winter where people are in school. I don't know for sure though on that, but I would imagine maybe something along those lines might be a factor. Can you still be a civilian and join the USAA bank? What are you talking about? It's a bank. You want to work at the bank? That's just a civilian job. Yeah, that's not military. It's not a military bank. It's not run by the military. It's a civilian corporation that has the USAA bank. It's not a military bank. It's just a regular job. It's no different than working at McDonald's. I mean, I'm sure it's probably better status than working at McDonald's, but it's no different than working at McDonald's, working at Walmart, working as a construction person. It's just another job. There's no requirements to be in the military or not being in the military. Is security forces same as MP? Yes, security forces is basically the Air Force's military police, and then in the Army they have military police. Hey Chris, found the channel recently right as I was trying to figure out what kind of path I want to take. Your channel has been amazing. Help keep up the great work. Well, thank you, Liam. I appreciate that, and hope lots of other people can get great information from the channel. If you don't know, I also created a playlist. If you go to the channel and look towards the top of the channel, there's a playlist of videos that I recommend before you go to basic training, before you join the Army. Just a lot of things that maybe are good tips to learn before you go to the Army, as far as like rank and how vacation time works, what the life is like for a single soldier compared to a married soldier, and all that kind of stuff. So definitely check out that playlist when you guys get a chance if you have not seen all of those or most of those videos anyways. What do you know about 25 Victor? Not a whole lot. It sounds like a really cool MOS, though, that I would have been interested in had I had an interest in video production when I first was joining the Army. So it seems like a great MOS, possibly, but I don't know a whole lot about it. Say I have an outstanding traffic ticket before I want to join. Would I have to pay for the tickets before in order to join first, or could I join and then pay them off once I join? If they're outstanding, yeah, you're probably gonna have to pay them before they're gonna allow you to join, because technically, don't you usually have a warrant for that? They'll maybe a minor warrant, but yeah, if you have any kind of active warrants, you're not gonna be able to join until you've taken care of those warrants, and that would probably go along that same kind of line where you have an outstanding traffic ticket, you possibly have a warrant for you as well, and you'd have to take care of that before you can join. Yeah, you're not gonna be able to come into the Army with that. My goal is 18 X-ray, but I'm not quite there yet. Physically, going 11 X-ray on a year term for like 1 year, a term now, just to enlist and get more time to be physically prepared than requesting selection. And that's probably a pretty good route to go. A lot of individuals that I've known that have done, tried for special forces just straight off the bat going into the Army to go special forces, compared to those individuals that have spent a little bit of time in the Army learning things, getting into good shape, getting familiar with the life of being in the Army before making the decision to try out for the special forces. Those individuals that have spent a little bit of time in the Army seem to have a better success rate of making it through selection than the individuals that just went straight into the Army trying to be special forces. That has a little bit higher of a failure rate because you don't have the experience yet of being in the Army, and they're expecting you to be able to do certain tasks that maybe you don't have a whole lot of knowledge on. You're having to learn like right off the bat, and a lot of other factors in there. So that's probably a better route to actually do, is to spend a little bit of time in the Army and then try to go special forces. It seems like from the individuals I've talked to, that has the higher success rate, is doing it that way. Can your MOS limit what school, like airborne, you can attend? For some, especially like when it comes to like sapper school, that's mainly primarily an engineer type of thing, but they do allow other MOSs to go to sapper school, but usually the priority is going to go to those people that need that school. So if there's a lot of engineers going for sapper school that time you're trying for it, then you might not be able to go because there's a lot of engineers doing it, where there might be some open slots where you can get it. So in some ways, yes, there's some schools that have priorities, and if you're not a part of that priority, then it might be a little bit more difficult for you to get into that particular job. If your AIT is longer than 20 weeks, can your spouse move with you to your AIT location? And if so, can she move right away when your AIT starts, or does she have to wait a couple of weeks into AIT? I don't believe so. There might be some special circumstances for some AITs that are really long, but everything I've always ever seen, no. You're gonna have to wait until probably you go to your first duty station, mainly because the military, if they're gonna pay to move your spouse to that location, you're only gonna be there temporarily, then they're having to spend that money on something that's only temporary. Where when you go to your first duty station, you're gonna be there for several years usually. And that's a little bit more manageable to be spending money to move a spouse and a family to that location rather than paying to have them move somewhere else to, temporary. Now, if you chose to maybe have your spouse maybe move there willingly without the military paying for it and just got a place off base, that might work, but the limitation on how often you're still gonna be able to see that spouse can still really vary as far as, does your AIT allow you to have weekends off? Or how much time are you getting off in AIT? So how relaxed your AIT is sometimes depends on the leadership, sometimes depends on the length, a lot of factors, so there's no real guarantee. You could end up getting stuck with an AIT that rarely gives you weekends off, and then you went through all this effort to have your spouse move out there hoping that you're gonna get to see them on the weekends and everything, and then you don't. So there's no guarantee with that. So that can really just depend. So it'd be a very cautious kind of thing to go for. Cheese Stinky, you're the man, Chris. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Ship August 6th, 88 Mike. We look to you, Eugene. Hopefully all goes well. Make sure to check out my 88 Mike videos. I have 88 Mike videos that are on there, a couple, like 1 or 2 or something like that may help you out. Do you have to opt out of MGIB to take the the Montgomery GI Bill, to take the post 9/11 GI Bill? Yes. So you can do the Montgomery GI Bill and then later switch to the 9/11 GI Bill, not for the full length of it, but you can't go to the 9/11 and then switch back to the Montgomery GI Bill. So that's what actually I did. I started off doing the Montgomery GI Bill, and then if I exhaust all of my education benefits with the Montgomery GI Bill, then I can switch over to the post 9/11, but only for 1 year. You can't just go and switch over and get like an additional 4 years. No, it doesn't work that way. But I can, if I exhaust all of my Montgomery GI Bill education benefits, I can switch over to post 9/11 for 1 year if I wish to. But for other individuals who went straight into the 9/11 because they like that option better, they can't go backwards to the Montgomery GI Bill. So that is basically how that kind of works. We got approximately probably about 4 or 5 more minutes left of the live stream, so just kind of be aware if I didn't get to your question, nothing personal probably. You know, you can always come back to the video after it's been processed to leave a question. If you want to hit me up on Instagram, you can find me just looking for Christopher Chaos and shoot me a message there. I'm pretty good at usually responding to everybody on there for the time being, and I do my best to do so. So you can hit me up there, and then you know, email, I guess. You can go to the Christopher Chaos website. There's a contact form. Shoot me an email. Sometimes that's a little harder to reply to compared to like hitting me up on Instagram, but that just kind of depends. And then, of course, if you're enjoying this live stream, make sure you're hitting that thumbs up on the live stream so that way, you know, I can know that you're out there and you love it. All that kind of funness, all right? Can you tell me pros and cons of a 92 Alpha? What is it? 92 Alpha, is that supply specialist? I don't really know it well enough because I wasn't a 92 Alpha. So as far as, you know, all of the good pros and cons of that, I don't really know too well. I don't really know. You'd have to talk to someone who probably was in that MOS as far as what they feel like the pros and cons were. In Central Florida, all recruiting stations, including mine, are going to have an Army competition, physical and knowledge, next Saturday. Wish me luck. Well, good luck to you, Alexander. Sounds kind of interesting. It'd be kind of cool, I guess. I'm going to probably start doing maybe some like quiz episodes on here. I was thinking about it maybe not this week, but next week maybe or something. I don't know when I'll do it, but having like some kind of like little quiz style videos every once in a while where it's like a quiz where you maybe I asking like a question or trying to say if something's true or false or whatever, and then you can pause the video to think about it if you need to, or if you can answer it in your head right away you can, and then just kind of test to see how well you do and how well you know Army stuff. So maybe next week, maybe that might be a video that might come up. I don't know. I got some other stuff already planned for this week's episodes, so it probably won't be this week. Gunsmith MOS, there is. I've done an MOS Monday on it. I forget what it was. Was it like a 92 something? Or were you talking about that 92 Alpha? Is that what you're talking about for Gunsmith MOS? I don't know if that's what you're talking about the 92 Alpha was, or if you're asking if there's an MOS for Gunsmith, there is. I've done an MOS Monday on it, and that was all the information I knew from that episode. So you have to check that out. Can you please talk about Delta Force and how you get there? I don't know all of the ins and outs for Delta Force for getting to it. Typically, individuals that get selected for Delta Force are individuals that were already in the 75th Ranger Battalion or individuals that are in a Special Forces group. Usually those are the common people that get selected to go to Delta Force, is someone who's either in the Rangers already or someone who is already in the Special Forces. So that's about the extent of my knowledge on that, of how that kind of works. So if that's what you want, eventually go to Delta Force, well then you're going to have to go Ranger or Special Forces to try to get there. Can you rank up a basic training? And if so, how? There was like, has there been already like two other people, I think, in the live stream that's asked about that. It's possible. It can be challenging based on your drill sergeants and the leadership there and a lot of other factors. So commonly the people that get promoted while in basic training is because they've done something outstanding. They've maxed their PT test, they've, you know, shot expert, whatever, and then drill sergeants went through the extra effort of putting in for a waiver for you to get promoted. Otherwise, you're gonna have to wait until you get to your first unit, commonly. Was there a policy to hold on reservists in the early 2000s on their contract? I remember my buddies in college that did their time and then told they were indefinitely on hold until called. I'm not familiar with that. I was not in the reserves, so I don't really know about anything like that. I don't think I've ever heard of that. So I don't know. Can you join Rangers and Special Forces? No, it's one or the other. I mean, you could do one and then go to the other, which if you're going to do that, you would want to go Rangers and then Special Forces, because I feel like it'd be a step backwards to go Special Forces and then leave Special Forces to go Rangers because of the intense process you go through to become Special Forces. It seems like a little bit backwards of progression if you were to do Special Forces and then Rangers. So if you want to do that, you could go Rangers, spend some time in the Rangers, and then try to go Special Forces selection and try to get into the Special Forces unit. but you can't be both at the same time. Chris, thanks for answering most of my questions. I think my recruiter is tired of me asking. That's fine. That's what I try to be here for. I don't know everything, but I try to give my input on what I can. I have my associate's degree, and I plan on getting my bachelor's degree while in the military and go to officer route. Does my MOS at the time of being enlisted affect me going into OCS and MOS as an officer? I think so. I think typically you go into something similar related for that branch because they understand you already have experience in that. I'm not 100% sure on that though, but I believe that usually if you're in, say, like a transportation MOS, then they're going to try to keep you as an officer in the transportation field typically because that's where you already have experience with. But I don't know if that's true 100% or not. All right, so we are at 1 hour of the live stream. I'm going to go backwards in the chat, try to find one that maybe I missed and try to answer that. And then we'll try to do one new one, and that'll basically end the live stream here. Let me see if I can find an old one. I'm going to go backwards a ways. Let me try to give me a second to find something. Something that maybe I missed. Let's see. A lot of these I've answered, or they're just comments to something else. Here we go. I'll go with this one, I guess. Let's see. Here we go. Chris, does Fort Carson still have those buildings that they refer to as the Banana Belt? I stayed in building 2052 when I was there. Yes, on Fort Carson, they still have the Banana Belt, and that's basically because if you look at it from the map, it's kind of like in a banana shape, so they haven't got rid of that. On the Banana Belt, there are, on the south side of the Banana Belt, I guess it'd be just a lot of barracks and offices, where on the north-ish side of the Banana Belt is nothing but motor pools. So yes, there is still the area known as the Banana Belt on Fort Carson. That still exists. All right, one last question. We'll do this one. Dante asks, where was it? Oh, do you know anyone who got a dishonorable discharge? I'm trying to think. There's probably going to be a future video about like horrible soldiers that I've encountered and stuff. I'm trying to think if one of the examples that I'm going to be giving in that video, if that individual got a dishonorable discharge or if it was something else. I don't remember what his discharge was. So I guess that's not a very good question to leave off on because I'm not sure if I've known anybody that's got a dishonorable discharge because I'm not sure of some of the people that I know that got kicked out, whether they got dishonorable discharges or they got some other than honorable or what. So we'll do another MOS or another question. Let's see. Would submitting a packet to go to selection affect an 11 X-ray bonus? Well, if you've already gone into that MOS and received the bonus for it, then no. If you're trying to come into the Army as an 11 X-ray and you want to switch that to 11 to a 18 X-ray, is that what you're talking about? Submitting a packet to go to selection? So like you're trying to do an 18 X-ray MOS, then yeah, that would probably affect it because the whole intent was that you go in as an 11 X-ray and complete the training, and then get a bonus. But if you've already gone through that training and then gotten that bonus, and then later put in for 18 X-ray, they're not going to like take that bonus back. They shouldn't do that. We'll do one more. Should I join NJROTC in high school and then do ROTC in college, then continue to the military to become an MP? Personal preference, I guess. I mean, doing JROTC in high school will help educate you on a lot of different things. And then if you're later going to do ROTC, then that allows you to come in to be an officer. So personal preference, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer on that. It's just personal preference as far as if you want to get an education, become an officer compared to enlisted or what you want to do. It's more of a personal thing. So, all right, guys, that is going to end it, I think, for this live stream. You guys are awesome. I appreciate you guys coming to hang out, asking questions. Hopefully I helped all of you out or most of you out or whatever. But like I said, if I missed your question by any chance, not maybe intentionally, then make sure to hit me up on Instagram. Would be a great place to go. Just do a search for Christopher Chaos, or if you look for the handle at that Chris Chaos, you follow me and shoot me a message. I do pretty good at responding to you on there. You can come back to this video later, ask a question on there. You can go to ChristopherChaos.com, and there's a contact form that you can, click on the link and fill out a contact form and ask questions from there. I try to help out the best that I can and do whatever, maybe answer questions you want to know about the Army or life in general, I guess. Maybe I can help you out with the meaning of life. Probably not very well, but I'll do my best. All right. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will be back in the live stream maybe during the week. Maybe if not, then over the weekend and all that kind of stuff. So thanks for hanging out. You guys rock. See you next time. See ya.